once it's ready. There we go.
Broadcasting moments right to you.
Exactly. So we can actually go up here.
Live without a net. Well, I guess an internet.
We are pretty much always live without a net. That's interesting. Still trying to figure us out. There we go.
Woohoo.
All right. See if that pulls in. That'll give us our one viewer. Actually doesn't, because if I'm logged in as myself, it doesn't count myself, which is kind of nice. It's smart that way. Cool. All right, I'm going to grab my water, actually, because I can tell.
Haruhi.
Thirsty.
Haruhi.
Suzumiya.
Suzumiya.
I need to pull in a little bit because I'm almost off camera. All right. There we go.
The background. Yep.
Background. Yep. Looking great. As usual.
Yeah.
I figure out something to squeeze in between Robotech and the Pocky, or the whatever that is.
Oh, yeah.
A space there. Getting nice and filled in now. It's great.
Yeah.
It's quite a geeky spot. All right. Cool. All right. I guess we can go ahead and get started then. That's good. We're recording. We're broadcasting. We got this over here, and now we will see if this works. That sounds familiar.
Yeah.
Sounds like smoke
and mirrors.
So we are back and ready to go.
Hi, everybody.
An unusual episode this week. We weren't able to do 2 episodes of Boogiepop, so it'll just be the one, along with an episode of Haruhi Suzumiya. So let's move on to Haruhi. So this was the big comedy episode, I think, of recently and of most of the series. Early on, we got the episode where they're messing with Computer Club, and now we see the effects of that, the results thereof.
Haruhi has ways.
She does
messing
indeed.
with them.
So this episode introduces the idea that it actually starts very interestingly. I want to talk about that a little bit. How we just jump in immediately to the CGI ships.
Am I on the right show?
Exactly. We had the surprise of the Adventures of Mikuru Asahina in the first episode, where we suddenly had this magical girl show, and now we're getting all these CGI ships and all the characters is commanding their battleships. And they take a little while to reveal what's going on. It's not quite clear. And then we move on. We get some all this sort of space porn of all the characters, of all these ships moving around. We get to these glimpses of the characters from the back and from the side. And it looks like Haruhi. We can see her hairbands. And everyone's reacting as they normally do around Haruhi with bemusement.
Yes.
And and Haruhi reacts as normally. So we then cut into a very normal day for the SOS Brigade.
Go. The game
They're
of
playing
Go.
Go.
He's playing Go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awful nice.
Check out our culture shock on Go.
Yes, please do. And everyone has a pretty normal kind of environment. They're talking. Mikuru's making tea as usual. And whereupon, of course, things can't go normal.
Hey, what are these guys doing at the door?
Yeah.
New members? No.
Haruhi, of course, doesn't remember them at all, but we Otaku recognize them. They're from the Computer Club. And so they
want their big computer back, huh?
Yeah, imagine that. And so they're challenging the SOS Brigade in the way that only computer geeks can, with a video game
that they made.
Yes. So video games in Japan, at least homemade video games, are a little different than they are over here in the sense of the genres that you see a lot. This is a common style of video game that is I believe it's called like a space swarm war game, where you have thousands of ships on your side, and you're pitting them in different teams against each other. And so rather than taking a lot of hits for one ship, every ship can just take one hit, and you're seeing how many of them get destroyed over time.
Oh, wow.
So it's a little different. It allows for actually, and so you mentioned Go, a more Go-like environment.
Yeah, all the different small individual battles that add up to the sum total of everything.
Exactly. Another hint of why they put that little bit of Go in there. So I do love that Haruhi just doesn't remember them at all. But she and then doesn't she offer Yuki her body, or offer Yuki's body to them, and if they win, which,
no,
no, and
can't do that.
Which Kyon rightly points out. Well, if you're gonna offer anyone, you should offer yourself. Which Haruhi's like, okay, no, actually, wait. So
the computer.
On the computer. So of course Haruhi agrees, being Haruhi, and she suggests. There we go. She suggests, instead of that, if the SOS Brigade wins, they'll get 4 new laptops. It's pretty nice.
Yeah, it's a good deal for them if they can. But the guys created this game. That's
the
challenging. Yeah. They're gonna play the creator of the game and think they're gonna.
Yeah.
She definitely has a lot of confidence.
She sure does.
She does not like that.
She's definitely not melancholy in this episode. Now we notice here in this shot when they're all walking home some interesting things. One is that Kyon and Itsuki are back chatting with each other while the girls are ahead. You also notice something unusual about Yuki. What's Yuki doing here? It's kind of surprising.
She's not reading a book. She's actually looking at the game.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Of course, we must point out that the art for the game features a character who looks rather suspiciously like the captain of the space battleship Yamato,
with the beard and the hat.
Yeah, it's just possible. So that's again kind of our hint that Yuki's a little intrigued suddenly. Things are a little different. And Koizumi, of course, says, well, this is not a bad idea. I should point out one of the things we go past in this episode, which looks a little strange, is this circular object which has a frog on it. You know what that is?
Is that a manhole cover?
It is a manhole cover.
That's a strange manhole cover.
Yeah, one of the things they do in Japan is that every city and town and prefecture will have its own manhole covers. And yeah, so they'll design specific little designs for each one.
If you get lost, just look down.
Yeah, exactly. And so they look different in different parts of the city. And
that's
of course,
pretty neat. It keeps things from getting dull.
Right, totally. I'm not sure what the frog represents. I'm sure somebody has dug into that symbolically. So they all sit down to play the game. And
LAN party.
Yep, exactly. And there's a fog of war in effect, and so they're all trying to figure that out. Of course,
she's staring at the mouse. What is this
wonderful
thing?
little Star Trek 4 moment with Yuki?
I'm only familiar with books.
Hello, computer.
She's rocking the whole concept of mouse.
Exactly. We also do note that this is obviously after the earlier episodes because she has no glasses. And so characters are all trying to figure out. Of course, Mikuru has no idea what she's doing. And we get this wonderful little montage sequence where they're all fighting and they just keep on going and going. And they're training. They all die again. Their day of training, they all die again. But there's this wonderful progression in here where if you watch the shot, you can just, watch all the characters. Mikuru is basically the same each time. The others are basically the same. But look at Yuki. She's tapping the keys a little bit more. And she's typing normally. And now her fingers are going, pretty normal. Like she's got the hang of touch typing on this keyboard. Mikuru's fallen over.
It's blown her mind
completely. And here's another interesting point, actually, which I rather like, that Kyon says now, he looks over to Yuki and says, now, we're not going to cheat. We're going to do this fair and square. Yeah, because he knows what Yuki's capable of.
She has a backup.
She does. And what does she do? Is she gives a little nod. Just yes.
Right.
Right.
The day of battle. Comes.
And then again, wonderfully,
Lady
representatively, yes, Lady Haruhi. We have this. We transition almost completely into CGI battle mode. And there's very little back with the regular people. Haruhi's version. This is great. So every ship has its own passel of characters. Haruhi, of course, has the weirdest aliens, the strangest people in her ship.
Bright red outfit.
Yeah. Koizumi has all these sort of mannequins.
The green, and they're all almost the same.
Mikuru has literally polka dot ships. And she has cats. All little cats.
Oh, cute.
And of course, Yuki has all Yukis.
Just all Yukis.
Clones of Yuki everywhere. What's also interesting is we don't see what's on Kyon ship.
Yeah.
Wonder why that is.
That's weird.
Wonder why that would be. So they begin their game. Stato.
1600 hours.
hours.
Military time in space.
Things are not going so well.
Yeah, they're getting shot.
Yeah.
They're
blowing out of nowhere.
They're getting something was pixelated there. Was that
so Haruhi says, and it's beeped. Where did she say it here? Things are going bad. Launch the Gundam. So we have a little pixelated image of a Gundam firing there, which of course will get them the copyright issues. And things are not going well with that short skirt in space. And now we come back to Yuki, and her fingers are literally a blur as she's typing on the keyboard. In fact,
wow.
They even do this thing where you hear the rattling of the laptop on the table as she's typing so fast. And Kyon comes over, and he
look
he
at all the
windows. And he says, very reasonably, I told you not to cheat. Whereupon, what does she say? I'm not cheating.
I'm not cheating.
Yeah. I'm reverting the game to its correct state.
Reverting the game.
Yeah.
Those don't look like the game windows, if I recall. They were spaced like that.
Yeah.
That's what it looked like.
Yeah.
Those look like command prompts.
They sure do.
Those are text only.
Yeah. She figured out some way to pop all those up. So now, of course, we learn that the computer club cheated. Yeah, I love that.
Whoa. She's not cheating. She just types very fast.
Exactly. So the computer club has turned off fog of war, and they can see what's going on. So Yuki is literally decompiling the game live.
Well, with good reason. They were getting destroyed and decimated, almost as if they were in plain sight, even though they were at a distance where they shouldn't have been in plain sight.
Yeah, exactly.
Somebody.
And so now we get this key moment in the episode where Yuki turns and looks up at Kyon and asks for permission to fix the game. Now, this is important. This is a very important moment. Why is it an important moment?
Well, she's asking Kyon.
Yeah.
That's weird.
Isn't it?
That kind of goes in line with the theory that you mentioned to me earlier. I'm not sure if we've brought it up on
we haven't brought it up
yet.
Let's hold that off until the last episode, I think.
Yeah.
But it's interesting here that Yuki has full ability to act on her own, and yet we know that she's turning to Kyon and asking him to decide what to do. It's also remarkable in the fact that Yuki is taking initiative.
Yeah.
It is her job merely to observe.
She has done pretty much nothing but observe, except for when that one time where she had to deal with her backup.
Right.
Kind of.
And season 2 will delve into the issues with her only observing. And
she's observed lots of books.
Oh yes, she sure has. Because it's something you can do without anyone noticing her. But also note the expression on Yuki's face here. Anime series tend to focus a lot on characters' facial expressions. There's determination in Yuki's expression here. This is not the neutral expression we normally see. There's a little fire in her heart.
Yeah, I'd say she almost has passion.
Yeah, she's excited.
You rarely see that on her.
Yeah, and Kyon is surprised by this too. Suddenly she wants to win, which is really cool. And we see him reflected in her eyes. Get another little hint that she's paying attention to him.
This is native territory for her.
Yes.
Space battles, right?
Right.
She's an alien.
Totally. So what does she do? She goes and she presses the key.
Enter.
And then we cut back. And again, another thing I love. This is a classic thing for us older anime fans. Is we see that the computer club is in classic sort of 70s style anime characters. They have blue skin, the big uniforms, the suits. And they're even carrying
the goblet
of wine, which is great. Those of you who've seen Captain Harlock and Yamato, these are very familiar sights to you. We have the
stance.
Yep, exactly.
The cape.
But not turning out so well for them because suddenly
they're visible.
Yeah, fog of war is off for everyone. Everyone can see everyone at all times. Now, again, this is an important theme for the show. The point here is visibility. They're kind of hiding something that should just be visible and made clear to everyone else, which of course is what's happening to Haruhi. And so it is only fair that this would happen.
Access denied.
Access denied. Fully locked. No change. So now Haruhi can finally move forward and blow everyone to bits.
All the explosions.
And what's also fun is, and it's something that you can, there's Yuki going on the capital ship. And again, there's that hint where Yuki decides to concentrate on her fire on the capital ship. Very aggressive move. But what's cool here, and particularly funny, is when they're regularly playing the game, you hear this horribly cheesy MIDI music is playing the entire time. Every time you cut back to the CGI, you hear this beautiful orchestral version of that same horrible MIDI music. Like they're paying attention. It switches back and forth. Oh.
The reality, the fantasy inspired by the reality.
Exactly. Hey, Liquid, glad you could join us.
It can't be.
Yep. All the cliches. That's not possible. Oh, and Yuki's, I'm sorry, Haruhi's expression when she has won is just priceless. She is so happy with herself, and so she gets her laptops, and everything's back to normal. And again, here's another interesting moment where the computer club president comes back and asks if Yuki can come to their club room every so often.
She was incredible. They realized what happened.
Exactly. And then what happens? Yuki looks up at Kyon
for the okay.
Yeah, for the okay. And what does he say? What is his response to her? Well, I should also point out before I go any further, she's an SS game member. But again, look at Yuki's expression here. It's absolute surprise.
Yeah.
And here's kind of the sad thing about it. Her expression is, somebody wants me.
Yeah, that's exactly the.
Yeah.
Now I don't know if it's partly from longing or I've violated my directive of observation. I've come out from the radar.
Yeah, but she's not looking at her book.
She's going, hey.
Yeah. Wow.
Almost hopeful that
something could happen. And so Kyon responds by saying, that's an adorable expression on her face. By saying, do whatever you want to.
And she has volition now.
Yeah. Yes.
She wants to.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't just say, okay, I'm here to do my job.
Right.
She
says, maybe I will.
Maybe I will.
Which is rather awesome.
Aliens with desire.
What might that do in the future? Oh no.
I can't remember the exact point, but one of the quotes that I really liked from this was, "Are you forgetting I am the divine and sacred figurehead of the SOS Brigade?" I don't remember where she said that, but it was
somewhere in one of the battles. Yeah. That was a pretty awesome little moment.
But it almost seems like she isn't always necessarily the one who's giving the orders.
No,
there.
she's not.
Seemed to be
Yeah.
pulling some strings there.
That's exactly the point. I'm glad you brought that up, because that's exactly what's going on in this episode. Haruhi is off blundering in her own little world.
She's got her fantasy going on.
In fact,
I'm the queen of this.
Yes. Remember when she moves forward despite being kind of the king piece? And everyone says, no, stay back, stay back. No, she's definitely not the central element of this particular episode. It should also be pointed out that this episode is written by Shoji Goto, who was also the writer of a little series called Full Metal Panic. So a little bit of sort of inside baseball there. Full Metal Panic was... So anime studios typically get their start by making... but by doing work for other anime studios and other productions. So you fill in on this episode and on this scene. And once you get enough cred, you can eventually... get to the point where you're doing your own shows.
Oh, wow. So you help out others, and eventually you get your own, and then have other people help you.
Totally. And so one of the first shows that Kyoto Animation, the studio that made Haruhi, one of the first things they did was an adaptation of Full Metal Panic, which were these novels by Shoji Goto. And they were very popular. More remarkably, the first Full Metal Panic episodes or series was done by a studio called Gonzo. Now, Gonzo's, yes, just like the Muppet. Now, Gonzo is well known for starting strong and finishing kind of lackluster. They do really spectacular shows that kind of fall apart near the end. At least people say that.
Now, is that story-wise, or is that
more
animation?
Story-wise, and just in terms of adapting things, they have a tough time adapting things.
The adaptation process.
Full Metal Panic is a good example. I haven't finished it, but a friend of mine did, and he said it starts really strong, but then it gets really fillery. It gets really slow, and it's not even filler in the sort of traditional sense. It's filler in the sense of just we're taking so long to get anywhere. Yes, this was technically in the original story, but it's just really, really slow. So that was by Gonzo. Kyoto Animation stepped into the next two series, which were very well received. So Full Metal Panic was sort of Kyoto Animation stepping in and rescuing a franchise, if you will. And Shoji Goto has ever since stayed around Kyoto Animation and helped them out and written an episode here and there for things. And this is the episode he wrote for Haruhi Suzumiya. This is a moment that I believe was in one of the novels, but he kind of expanded out for this episode. And a lot of the things you see in here is Goto's work. So neat little thing there.
Exciting, fun.
Yeah,
I like that.
Yeah,
we got to check out more of that.
It was a fun little episode, and a little bit more for Yuki, which is never a bad thing. All right, so let's move from fun over into complexity, because we got to talk about Boogiepop Phantom.
Definitely complex. Every episode of Boogiepop, I'm just constantly amazed how much there is. I can barely write fast enough to look up, and I could watch it for like 4 or 5 times.
Yep. So in chat room, .hackme, great name by the way. When is Haruhi Suzumiya? So we watch an episode before we broadcast. So the idea is you have all up until next week to watch the next episode of Haruhi Suzumiya. And then we will watch it and talk about it then. And we have, I think, 3 episodes left, which I'm going to check here real quick. That's a very good question, actually. We are on, where are we? So we just did The Day of Sagittarius. So there are 2 more episodes. Live Alive and The Melancholy of Haruhi Suzumiya Part 5.
Melancholy.
Yes. So we're getting close on Haruhi
Different
there.
than the Border Collie.
Very, very much different.
The Border Collie of
Haruhi Suzumiya. There's got to be fan art of that somewhere. There just has
She's
to
got
be.
the pet,
Yeah. So this episode of Boogiepop focuses on Nagi Kirima, who we've seen up to this
if
point.
we can grab those quotes were
Yes.
fantastic.
So that's a good point.
They really set the stage for each of these episodes and their impact. It seems like some anime I see quotes in the beginning, and it seems like they have absolutely nothing to do with the show, and I wonder why did they even put them in? But these have to do with the show and what comes up, and and in interesting ways, because the way it develops, you can almost, it's a puzzle, and you say, hey, you know, oh, okay, I see why that quote is used now. Oh, I'm starting to gather together the ideas.
Yeah, exactly.
She's so unusual.
Yes. And, which is the name of the episode, as well as an apt description of its subject, Nagi Kirima. And so our first quote there,
the brain is a microcosm creating its own stories. People then live out these stories. And of course, the quote is by
Seiichi Kirima.
Nagi's dad.
Exactly. So that's, and all the quotes are from Seiichi, as far as I know.
He's the author of the book.
Yeah, exactly. So we're focusing here on Nagi. Unusually in this episode, we get these we get these time I forget what you call them. These little notes at the bottom of what time it is.
Yeah.
Throughout the episode, and I think one of the reasons they're doing that is to point out that this episode is very much about Nagi and this new character we see in a very short period.
Now, let's see,
427 p.m. October 28th.
October 28th.
No
butterflies.
Date. And we immediately see a glowing butterfly, so we know Monaka's around somewhere.
Memories.
Yep. Which is, again, a key element of the entire episode.
Most likely a painful memory.
Exactly.
The business card.
Yep. So this writer has these business cards that he's passing around. This is Ichiro Kishida.
Kishida.
Yep. And there we go. He passes by Monaka.
Freelance writer.
Which there's a lot of that, of course. Folks going around gathering stories. And Monaka releases a butterfly, which gives him a memory.
Hit him with a butterfly.
Yeah.
Here you go.
And this is the episode where we get to see a lot more of the fundamental backstory of the show in terms of what caused all of this. Because we see this figure crouched on the ground, and then we see Boogiepop appear and crouch down over him and whisper these mysterious words in his face. Oh, one other thing I wanted to mention before we go any further. What's interesting about this episode is it starts with some American jazz. Some jazz from the 20s, I believe, which for a Japanese audience would be a little off-putting. It would be positioning the episode in a kind of a different world and reminding you that we're a little off kilter in this episode. So we also know that this writer Kishida is looking up a certain writer.
Yes. Nagi's dad.
Yes, who had died. So we know that that her father's passed away at some point. So our first sort of
his encounter with her.
Yeah.
Butterfly girl. I forgot her. What was her?
Monaka.
Monaka. Yes. Time does not exist. Only illusion of memories exists.
That's an interesting sort of philosophical question that, you know,
the illusion of memories, not memories, but the illusion of memories.
Exactly. So, and the idea here is that we live in the present. We have memories of the past, but those memories can change. They're not permanent. So we have this illusion of memories because
our memories change, then our past changes. And
exactly.
It's all not really real. It's sort of the stage of the mind.
Yeah, absolutely. Which makes you think a little bit.
Yeah.
So of course he goes and he sees Nagi. Nagi's kind of not interested in him, but he tags along. She's carrying this compass, and I think we've seen this before.
Yeah, the magnetic fields go crazy in certain places, especially the park.
Right. So here's where we start to really see that explored in some detail. She's exploring these environments where we see more of this rust that's everywhere. It's really filling everything out.
I remember in an earlier episode that the construction guys were amazed how something suddenly rusted and cracked and deteriorated far before it was supposed to.
Yeah.
So it seems like that's kind of growing around. And I wonder if that's related to the weird magnetic fields. Well,
and she also mentions that not only does this not only is there rust, it also there's also plants growing faster. And we recall from a previous episode a house overgrown with plants.
That's right.
Yeah, so that's a factor there. And so the characters have this little run-in in the dark here, and it's a little hard to see, but they have this run-in with what appears to be Boogiepop. And let's see here. Ah, yes.
Let's see. Boogiepop and this guy.
Yeah. So we cut back to this moment where we can clearly see that column of light event beginning to occur. So we're really, getting back to that moment. We see this character. We haven't seen him before. And we get a realization of what's going on. We see somebody jumping into the light. And it looks a little bit like the Manticore or Sao Tome or whoever the heck that character is.
And the light.
And as that light expands, the light goes out. We've also seen Nagi being throttled by this bright cord.
Like she's being strangled there by somebody.
By somebody, indeed. And so, in a rare moment for this episode, or for this series, we actually cut back to a character explaining what the heck's going on. Where she explains this, what appears to be Boogiepop explains that there was this column of light event was caused by this character called Echoes, and that Echoes was on some kind of mission, and that Echoes basically died and created this column of light. But unfortunately, the Manticore was there as well.
Yes,
and the Manticore interfered and caused this emanation to go out throughout the city. And it's caused all of these phantoms.
Yeah.
One of them being the Manticore Phantom, one of them being the Boogiepop Phantom. And here's where she actually refers to herself as the Boogiepop Phantom for the first time.
Which I thought was kind of weird.
Yeah.
Partially because a phantom with consciousness.
Yes.
So not the original.
Mm-hmm.
She took the face of the original. Whose consciousness is it then if she isn't? I mean, or Boogiepop isn't a phantom, obviously, but following up with the face. But then what motives, what directives? Is this even a consciousness that's related to the original? Or is it just the face that's related to the original?
So it gets to some concepts, and I think this probably goes back, or undoubtedly goes back to Japanese concepts of what is the soul, what is consciousness. If a bunch of memories get separated from a person, and is given, for lack of a better word, life, motive power by this electromagnetic field, what would happen? Would those memories thus give that creation a purpose? If it remembers certain things it did, if it remembers certain activities, if it remembers certain emotions and passions, would it not then act on those memories? In other words,
that makes sense. There's force there, and then the memory directing it. But depending upon what memories were activated, it could be directed in all sorts of different directions. And
this gets back to that earlier quote. If we are a collection of memories, then a thing that is a collection of memories is like a human. It is equivalent.
Floating in the memories.
Exactly. Depending on, your philosophical take on that, but that is kind of where they're going with that concept. And so the Boogiepop Phantom kind of disappears. And so again,
out of respect, I will call myself Boogiepop Phantom.
Right. Respect for my original. So that tells us a few things. It tells us that there is a Boogiepop still going around. And while we were watching the episode, we noted that Nagi tries to hit Boogiepop with this metal pipe, which then drops through her.
Existence does not rely on matter. Everything is phantom. That's a very existential.
Yes.
Everything is phantom.
Well,
if time doesn't exist and matter doesn't exist, I would suppose that everything would be phantom. That's very surreal. It's almost like a holodeck.
Yes. Well, it gets back to that question. How much of you is your physical body? How much of that is necessary for you? If I chop off my arm, is that
makes
me?
Me.
Yeah. And if you could download all of your memories into a computer, would that be you? And now, granted, this is operating on a level which is essentially assuming it's actually be great to compare this to Lane, because it is basically throwing out this idea that the body is basically just a vessel for the mind,
containing a big container.
Big container. Lane's theorem is that the body and the mind are inextricably linked. that you cannot have the mind without the body, and that the reason that we have our bodies is to experience, life, and to use that as an organ for the mind, if you will. We've obviously taken kind of the other approach.
Wow.
That we're just kind of this collection of memories and ideas and concepts. Now, it should also be pointed out, that is what Seiichi Kirima is
his perspective
on it.
It doesn't necessarily mean that all the characters agree with that. He's just the guy who wrote the book, who what does it say? Kishida.
Kishida, yeah.
Kishida is investigating.
Right. And of course, being Nagi's dad, she's going to have some thoughts on that.
And that other girl on the roof wants to know about.
Right, exactly. And one of the neat things about this episode is that we keep seeing some moments from other episodes.
Yeah.
So we see Nagi giving the little charm back to the girl who could disassemble things.
From the previous episode where the boy with his younger sister, and he carved the charm for her.
We also see her with her friend earlier when she said, "You should probably hang out around that Toka girl. What if you hung out with her?" And in that episode, we saw this guy with glasses sort of standing nearby. Now we know who that is. It's this reporter character. And so they're wandering around exploring things and kind of talking through stuff. And we see this compass. Of course, this is a wonderful metaphor. What is a compass? It's a thing that...
Direction.
Yeah, it gives you direction.
It is.
And so, and this gets back to the thing we were talking about earlier. Boogiepop Phantom can be seen as simply a series of philosophies. Every episode investigates some view on life. These are all characters, teenagers, who are trying to figure out how to approach life. A compass is a thing that gives you direction. So on
purpose.
Go this way. But what's happened in this city?
It's been turned upside down.
Compasses don't work.
Go crazy.
Yeah.
They can't get a sense of direction. So where do they go? They need direction.
Yeah, exactly. So that's, again, another one of these symbols for what's going on in the show, that these characters are directionless and that they really haven't been able to figure out a proper direction to go, and they're kind of wandering off in these strange directions philosophically. Although, of course, plenty of humans have lots of strange philosophies as well. And again, we're in this park, and we look down and we see a little tree with a CD in front of it, and we realize it's Panaru.
Yeah, that's where she laid the Nietzsche CD.
Yeah.
The God is Dead CD.
That's right, yes.
Another philosophy that's...
Absolutely. There we go. We see them walking away from that. And so, again, we get a little more explanation of what's going on here. And we get the backstory about Nagi's time in the hospital.
Yeah. So at this point, did they go to the hospital there?
Yes. So they're actually on the grounds of the hospital. And we find out that Nagi has this abnormal growth, that she was already quite old. And if you were kind of thinking about this during those episodes, you would have noticed that this was 5 years earlier, but Nagi looks about the same size she is now.
Yeah, she really hasn't changed that much.
And Nagi, in and of herself, looks bigger than the high schoolers she's hanging out with. So that is, again, your hint that Nagi has this growth issue. We also know that there is some weird stuff going on in the hospital being given to various people at the time. So was Nagi injected with these things? Quite possibly.
I wonder about that. She said something just before this about the repetition of words.
Yes. Yes.
Manticore was tracked to the city, and the repetition of words forming of people in the future. It seemed very kind of cryptic.
Yeah. So what she's referring to is the fact that Echoes, which is this humanoid creature that had died in the Column of Light event, he'd been tracking the Manticore, Manticore had been tracking to him. Actually, no, he'd been tracking Manticore to this city. And unfortunately, Manticore kind of turned on Echoes. And the Echoes, it is believed, at least by Nagi, is an image of what humans will be in the future.
Wow.
The idea is that humans will eventually evolve these psychic abilities, these physical abilities that we've been seeing in the show, and that eventually all people will have these things. And Echoes has basically been brought back to our current time from some point in the future
to capture or incapacitate the Manticore.
Possibly.
Well, it seems that I think Boogiepop explained something about the Manticore during the Column of Light experience. The only way that the Manticore escaped was dispersing his consciousness.
Yes. So this Column of Light event occurred. The Manticore knew he was going to be defeated, and so he threw himself into the column, knowing that that would then disperse his consciousness throughout the city.
And we're thinking that consciousness is held in all these different memories. So he's spread out all these memories all over the city. As
has essentially Echoes, or what's left of Echoes. So again, I shouldn't even say spoiler alert, because it's how kind of, we've been doing this all this time. All these powers that are manifesting are echoes of Echoes the person. All of his powers are now manifesting in all these people because the Manticore messed up that event. And now all of these kids are manifesting all these powers way too early for humanity.
I wonder if those things are all held in that magnetic field. Because with the magnetic field being topsy-turvy, that happened after that dispersal.
And it's great you mentioned that, because he actually mentions, the reporter mentions the fact that when he came to the city, he noticed this aurora, which we've been seeing the whole time, this weird moire pattern kind of in the sky. And a lot of people watching the show think it's just some weird visual thing in the show. No, that's
part of the physics of what's happened. And
totally. Yeah, that event caused this strange electromagnetic field in the city. So that is affecting things. It's changing things. It appears to be causing this rust and this abnormal growth of things. It's also kind of interesting that it causes abnormal growth in plants, and Nagi Kirima has this abnormal growth. Who knows?
Might be related. I think there's a thread.
Quite possibly. And then we get this neat scene where they look at this hologram video game, and it looks very much like what was that hologram video game? Was it Space Ace? That had a little hologram little thing, I forget. And so they see that, and the idea is this electromagnetic field could be creating essentially holograms in the world.
And that's what Nagi's dad wrote about, was brain holography.
Yes.
And sort of the person.
And there's this common idea that are we living in a fantastically complicated computer simulation?
Yeah.
A sufficiently advanced computer simulation could simulate this entire universe. And so this is a variation.
Am I not really real? Am I just the avatar of my realness, which is somewhere?
Right. Who knows? And so this is kind of that idea that if the brain can generate these images, if the brain can create these kind of worlds within itself, what could be possible within the physical world? Can those images in the brain be projected into the real world?
It seems Manaka can.
Yes,
she
indeed.
Seems to have from the way she seems to have changed to the point where she can, which seems like one of the evolutionary steps in this.
Well spotted.
Strangeness.
That's exactly right. Manaka is doing precisely that. And we get another quote here.
The waking dream called the world is constantly changing. What's so sad about that?
Love a little haiku almost there.
Yeah.
A little poetry. And the waking dream, this idea that it is this thing occurring in someone's head.
That falls right into the simulation idea. Is this reality really the dream, and the dream really the reality?
This also gets to some of the themes we've seen in the show. Many of the characters in this show feel static.
Yeah.
They feel like things are the way they are, things can't change, and they're kind of screwed. But what Kirima is saying here is it's constantly changing.
Yeah.
What's so bad about that? It allows for people to become different, to break out of their molds. And we're only halfway through the episode. There's more talking here. There's stuff about the underground city, and we get a little action sequence here. So Nagi's setting up something on her cell phone, which looks so ancient by modern standards. And so they go underground, And oh, I think before that we get the scene at the hospital. Yes.
Oh, the hospital.
So
scene,
you
yes.
spotted this, and good for you. I didn't even notice it at all. Nagi picks up this little notebook which has little dates on it, which might be a hint to the fact that we're seeing all these little dates and times throughout the episode. And someone comes and picks it up, and it's not immediately obvious, but it's Manaka's mother that we've seen here and there. And she picks up and she asks, "Do I know you? Have we met?"
Indicating she might have memory lapses, and she just doesn't not. She's aware that she has memory lapses, but not what those memories were. maybe her daughter has all her memories.
Well, yeah.
Hi, Mom, I've got your butterflies.
Well, here's the interesting thing. I mean, it's an interesting point because we have a couple of things there. One, both Manaka and her mother now live completely in the present.
Yeah.
Oh
wow.
You know, her mother only knows the last few minutes. Manaka clearly isn't, paying attention to anything else going on. And Manaka's mother doesn't even know Manaka exists, as far as we can tell. I mean, how would she?
Yeah.
And which is one of the reasons why Manaka is kind of wandering around wherever she is. And this ties in wonderfully to this theme of this episode, which is we live in the present, which is these kind of memories as baggage. I think it's a very interesting point. You brought it up that Manaka has all these memories, her mother has none.
Yeah.
I think it's a great idea. I mean, maybe she did take all of her mother's memories, which is why her mother has all these issues. Of course, we also know that Manaka also has this strange growth thing where she now looks about 14, 15, despite being 5 years
older
old.
than she really is.
Yeah.
So she's acting age appropriate, just not
exactly.
physical appearance appropriate.
Yes. But even more so to what you mentioned before, she's acting like echoes. One of the things Echoes did was an echo. So she keeps repeating things she hears.
Words over and over.
Yeah.
And she repeats things that other people say. It's funny, at the beginning of the episode, when Kishida encounters her.
Yeah.
He said she hits him with a butterfly, and he has that weird memory. And then he goes, "What the hell was that?" And she repeats the same thing he said, parroting it right back to him, repeating exactly what he said.
Yeah.
And
the quote?
The perfection has pure perfection has no past. That is how you live purely.
So this is not just about living, it's about living purely.
With it by eliminating your past?
Indeed.
I guess if you have no past, you have no record of wrong.
Yes.
And that's pure.
Yes, exactly. It's a very Buddhist concept, living in the moment, living in the now.
The present.
And kind of dealing with all of your the issues of your past. And so now we get our wonderful action sequence down in the sewers and the unbuilt new city. And we get a little bit of social commentary here because they were going to build this new sort of underground city, but then the economy tanked. all that had to change. Boogiepop was made about 5 or 6 years into the great Japanese economic meltdown of the 90s.
All the tunnels that were built that didn't get used.
Yeah.
So now they can explore.
And it should be pointed out, Japan in particular and Tokyo and Japan in general, Tokyo in particular, has a lot of underground and undercity stuff for dealing with things like water. Because they get so much rain and so many typhoons, they need lots of infrastructure to deal with all that water flowing through.
So when we see these giant pumps and underground cities in other anime, that
is real.
Built around a real scenario.
Yeah, I've seen documentaries where they go through these miles-long tunnels underground where they're just like, yeah, this is because we'll get, thousands of tons of water just pouring through here, and otherwise it's going to flood the city. We have to. It all goes somewhere. Much less sewers and all the other infrastructure. There are, and of course the Gundam reserves. Gotta have those too. So we get this fight sequence between Nagi and Manticore and Boogiepop Phantom.
And the reporter's there to take notes.
Yeah, basically, he's kind of observing. But we see our first image of something that we'll come back to a little bit later. These cocoons. Let's see if I can find
that was creepy.
Cocoons. Very creepy.
So here she is putting all these things that look like time bombs.
Yeah.
But we find out they're not bombs in the sense of explosive, but in the sense of electromagnetic field disruptors.
Yes. So she is blocking this field, which is causing the Manticore Phantom to kind of go crazy, because that's his lifeblood. That's how he exists.
So she's planted bunches of these, and then she encounters, what is it? A cocoon? It's
very
creepy.
strange.
It's like the largest spider. I'd flip out. Something that big is not going to live in the tunnel
No.
that I want to be in.
Yeah. But Kushida sees them. He sees inside them are people.
Faces.
Yeah.
Like they've been eaten.
Wrapped up in there. So we don't know quite what that is just yet. But we do know, oops, that's going a little too far. But Boogiepop Phantom then shows up to disperse the Manticore Phantom and saying, okay, he's now dispersed enough that he's weak enough, he's not going to come back. But also, significantly, she explains that she is the main reason why all these children have been disappearing.
Yeah, that was weird. I'm just curious about that.
Yeah.
What about these children?
And Boogiepop Phantom,
I've taken them.
yes, and
to save them.
To save them.
To save them.
Right.
You took them to save them? That's a strange Pied Piper there.
Right. Very much. Indeed. There's another interesting moment actually here, which I see if we can get when, I don't know if we can actually see it. With all the, there's those weird things. When Nagi goes to press the bombs and to activate the bombs, there's this strange expression on her face. There's this expression almost of pity. Like she's sad for what she's about to do. Man, I can't find it here.
Nagi? Nagi's sad.
Her expression changes. It's not just that firm determination. Just for a moment, she looks sad. And here's the thing, this isn't the Manticore Phantom just. It is also the symbol of Ramla Saotome, who went to her high school, who she probably knew.
Yeah.
What feelings might she have had for Saotome that he's standing there right in front of her, and she's about to make him disappear.
Even if he is the Manticore.
Yeah.
He still looks like the guy.
Yeah.
She has known.
Right. So there's something there, I think. Anyway, so she fires these off, and
but they don't.
Well, they don't work. And here's a wonderful little writing thing: is that they don't work. If Boogiepop Phantom comes in and goes, "Excuse me, I need that magnetic field to live too."
Yeah. so both Manticore and Boogiepop live in this magnetic field.
Yes.
That's just chaos. That throws all your compasses off. So they live in this field that.
Yeah. But yeah, it's a big.
But that Manticore's hand went like
all
wacky, crazy.
Yeah. We've seen that anime where it all goes all tentacle. Very scary. Which I'm sure is a bit of a reference there. They're having some fun with the audience there with that imagery. And then that that wonderful cord of light,
creepy web.
Goes around the Manticore and takes him out. And then we get this interesting scene with Nagi and Kushida when they go back outside, and suddenly, and they're kind of talking to each other about what happened, and suddenly all the lights come on, and suddenly they're in Paisley Park.
But Paisley Park never got built.
No,
never got completed. The funds fell through. They pulled out the backing. What's his name went wacko over.
Yeah.
He's like all depressed.
Yeah, I mean, and we've seen images of some of it, so we know it got partly constructed, but certainly not completed.
Lights in the middle of the night.
And there's Poom Poom and Manaka walking past, and then it fades away again. All shuts down.
Ooh.
Well, we know that Nagi's been screwing around a bit with the electromagnetic field, and maybe that caused something. Who knows?
Yeah.
But it is certainly an interesting question. We'll see more about them in the next few episodes. Liquid asks, what known anime during the time we know got affected by the bad 90s economy? All of them. If you look at anime budgets in the early 90s versus the late 90s, look at Tenchi Muyo.
The whole culture.
Yeah. If you look at the first Tenchi OVA compared to, say, Tenchi in Tokyo, well, it should be better that the first Tenchi TV series versus Tenchi in Tokyo, budgets got much lower.
I can't confirm, but I feel like Speed Grapher kind of grew out of that environment.
Oh, interesting.
There's a big concern about building up stockpiles of cash and the big differences between the people who are able to do this, living in these giant high rises with opulent living, and everybody else who's just dying to get cash and get in on it. But I don't know. I mean, it's supposition on my part, but
wouldn't surprise me at all.
It wouldn't surprise me if that kind of story came out.
There's a surprising amount of anime that is about cultural things going on at the time of various sizes. Double Zeta Gundam actually has a reference to certain adult comics of the time. Shimoneta, the current anime series, also called A Boring World Where Dirty Jokes Don't Exist, is a reference to some legislation.
No.
Yes, exactly.
I think we're just doing.
Yeah.
Today we're just going to be doing one of the Boogiepop episodes. Time constraints impeded our ability to absorb more than one episode.
Yeah, let's just be honest. Traffic completely destroyed us.
Yeah.
There was some terrible accidents in our area today, and so we couldn't get here in time. And so just that happened. So yeah, we're just doing the one episode today. Normally we try to do two, but just
But
we
that
barely
means
had
we
time
can
for
go
this
to
one.
extended round.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so that's fine. That happens.
Yeah.
But yeah, we barely got this one in. Also note, as we see him walking away, we see 3 teenage girls in the shot.
Ooh.
Now I'm not sure from this.
Aren't those the 3 teenage girls from the earlier
Yes,
episodes?
I think they're from episode 1.
Yeah.
I think yes. That's them
trying to get their friend to come out.
Yep, exactly.
It's funny. All the characters keep kind of encountering each other, even though they don't know that there's some correlation between their lives.
There's even a little reference here as he's riding away on the subway. We see that shimmer
the
of light.
electricity.
Yes, that the Manticore
strange.
came in on, and the lights shine.
How can you say you are a phantom?
So that's an interesting way of phrasing it.
Yeah.
He's not asking, how can you say you are not a phantom?
How can you say you are a phantom? If a phantom doesn't have a corporeal body, how is...
And that's exactly his...
That's it.
Exactly his point. Boogiepop Phantom calls herself a phantom. But if she exists, is she really a phantom?
She's memory. She's collective. But you can swipe pipes through her. So in that sense, she's a phantom. But to be able to vocalize something, she must be using those electromagnetic waves somehow.
Must be, yeah.
Which is really far advanced for some developing human from the future to grab electromagnetic waves and be able to speak to people.
Totally. Yeah, it's an interesting question. Yeah, so that is our episode of Boogiepop Phantom for tonight. As you mentioned, we had some delays, so we will be coming back next time with this episode.
Episode 9?
Episode 9, I believe.
A red balloon.
A red balloon.
Red balloon.
And an episode about writing, as it turns out, if I recall correctly. But more about Poom Poom next time on Boogiepop Phantom. That's it for this episode of Smoke and Mirrors. Thank you all for joining us. See ya. All right, then let's move over to news. There's a not huge amount this time, actually. Get your tablet.
Take off my eyeglasses so I can see. The right one or the left one? Hey, cameraman, focus.
Probably shouldn't stand in front of the camera, should I? For some reason that powered off. Wait momentarily while that comes in. I will go.
Thank goodness we got those puppets out of the way. We can do this a little bit
absolutely,
longer.
yeah. They're never coming back. Yeah.
As we stay vigilant.
Yes. Don't let our guard down. We'll become the human phantoms. Non-existing. Unreal.
Digiland.
Digiland. Which reminds me, I would like to... Oh, I forgot to pull images for these.
You know, the whole
Dang it.
concept of consciousness is interesting because the idea of a consciousness being able to be stored on the internet as and in the cloud, basically, on people's hard drives and as a collective. And I think a lot of sci-fi kind of delves into that area of consciousness. The idea of I think there was a Ghost, Ghost in the Shell deals with it a lot, and so does Cowboy Bebop. I think had one episode where there's a guy in a hospital, and he had developed a whole religion just from his hospital bed, and convinced people to upload their consciousness into the net to transcend. And I don't know. I mean, the idea that you can read somebody else's writings and think their thoughts and the patterns that they've thought, it's almost like they come to life when you know, they may have been dead for 1,000 years and you delve into the way that they thought. And as you read, you can really kind of anticipate where they will think because you already have observed their patterns of processing information and dealing with it.
Yeah. Interesting question. That may need to hit the button there on the side.
Button.
All right. Yep. Oops. What did that do? That hit the camera. Okay,
now
that pulled up the camera.
The escape there.
Yeah, there we go. Hit it. It is apparently very slow today. Of course, it's just booting up, so there's always that issue. That's never seen that. Oh, hit the little house icon there. That should go back to the home screen eventually. There we go. And then the blue docs icon. And there should be a...
Okay, Doc. Yeah.
It's going to be...
Help me, Doc.
Probably a few seconds between every press and it actually doing something. And there should be an anime news doc in there once it pops up. I think we only have 5 items.
Oh,
this week.
Slow news day.
Slow news day /
Dog
week.
bites man. It was perfect timing.
Perfect.
Right on
Imagine
cue. Let's see. Maybe make that larger.
Yeah, if you tap it, it should. No, just well, get a minute.
Tap.
Get a minute.
Why is it opening? But open. Okay.
Right, and it should refresh in a few seconds to today's. Needs to pull in August 4th. And we should be good to go. Yeah, give it a second to refresh. Gosh, we need a better tablet.
How's our Patreon?
Still empty.
Come and join us. So have we got an announcement about somebody? An announcement regarding somebody? A winner?
Oh yes. I thought we announced it last week.
Did we?
I thought so. Let me just pull up my information here.
There we go. Wow, this doc has changed a lot.
Yep.
Reload.
Let's see here. 1 second, I'll pull that
doc
up.
isn't responding. Let's see.
Yes. So, and he's not in the chat room at the moment. But Dark Realm.
Hey, Dark Realm.
He won our puppet contest.
Congratulations.
Congratulations to him. And he won it through an email submission, by the way, just to kind of note that. So he'll be getting a nice giant NanoHop poster. So congratulations, Dark Realm. And that should be coming to you in the next week or two as we get mail flying all over the world. But yeah, Dark Realm won our contest, which is pretty awesome. Wasn't just some random person on the internet. It's good old Dark Realm. Ready to go?
Yep.
All right.
Around the world, down the street, and in your backyard, it's Horizons. The news show. With Brent and Evan.
When news breaks, we fix it. That's just far too silly. All right, let me pull this over so we can actually show it, which would be kind of nice.
Woohoo!
Yeah,
Wow.
and then can I do
Look at
that? I can. Yes.
Nice.
So Disney has announced a Blu-ray box set called The Collected Works of Hayao Miyazaki.
Whoa.
It will include every movie Hayao Miyazaki's ever directed, including The Castle of Cagliostro and Nausicaa, the Valley of Wind.
Was that a Lupin thing?
Yes,
Wow.
yes. All the way through The Wind Rises. It will also include the pilot film Yuki's Son, which Miyazaki made all himself, and 3 episodes of the TV show The Little Samurai, which Miyazaki storyboarded. And it will include a book called The Great Dichotomy, which analyzes the themes in Miyazaki's work. However, it does not include absolutely everything Miyazaki's ever made. For example, it will not include the music video On Your Mark, or the TV series Conan Boy the Future, which he directed, or the episodes of Lupin III that he directed. So it's just movies and a few other little bits and pieces. This box set is based on an existing set that was released in Japan and Australia. That set included On Your Mark, but it doesn't seem to appear in this one. On Your Mark is a music video. It's beautiful. Miyazaki directed that based on just some folks' work. Disney's Blu-ray set here will be released November 17th on Amazon only.
Oh, did they have a price for it yet?
I have not seen a price for it yet. It'll probably be expensive.
It would be great to get.
That's like 13 movies, something like that.
Wow.
On Blu-ray. Yeah, so that it's not going to be $80, folks, unfortunately. But we shall see. Yeah, exciting news.
Well, the Love Live film has been in theaters for 50 days now and has made over $17 million so far.
Not bad.
Yeah, it's now surpassing earnings from the third Madoka Magica film back in 2013.
Okay.
It's in its first 3 weekends. It was number 1, number 2, and number 1 film.
Wow.
In Japan, respectively, losing only to Mad Max Fury Road in its second weekend.
Okay, man.
Love Live is a very popular anime franchise about pop idols, which seem to be gathering more and more steam.
Cool. Wow. People like pop idols.
Yeah.
For that reason. Nothing wrong with that. If you've seen images of life-size anime figures at trade shows, and for those watching on the video, yes, that's a life-size figurine.
Oh my
figure,
goodness.
if you will.
Wow.
So Rocket News 24 has released a report about how those figures are created. Because how?
Wow.
So this company called Design Coco makes detailed computer models of the characters. Then a huge industrial-sized 3D printer prints them out in pieces.
Are you serious?
Yeah, absolutely. And those are sanded and painted and assembled. I mean, there's a lot of processing that goes on with all those. You can see the skin tones and all that stuff. In fact, I'm going to scroll a little bit on this image, so you can see some of the detail on this. It's slightly NSFW.
We should invite her on the set.
Absolutely, yes. You can see just the details here are just crazy. And again, it is life size. This is a side-by-side of the life size and then the actual figurine that they based her off of.
Wow.
As you can see, there's a lot of detail added here compared to that in the hair textures and how it curls and so forth.
Wow.
And then they show in here, as we kind of scroll down, they also have
life size
Toyohisa Shimatsu from Drifters in life size with armor and sword and all that good stuff. Also have all the folks who are just kind of walking by like, whatever.
Have them guard my front.
Totally. They also, and then there's the 3D printer they're using. So it can print out things that are, feet on a side.
Wow.
Multiple feet. So it comes out in this basically plain white or one color, which then it's painted and processed. They did a life-size Madoka Magica, an ultimate Madoka a while back, which is just stunning, especially well lit. So these are used to create these various characters. Now, obviously, these are very expensive one-off figures that are sold directly to companies and are not available on the open market.
Companies can afford it.
Yeah, exactly. Ain't gonna be on Amazon anytime
You're gonna be a
soon.
serious
Sorry.
fan if you can buy one of these.
Yeah. I can't imagine shipping it, much less anything else.
Yeah.
But maybe some, and I'm sure it's like
Maybe
anything
in
else.
parts.
In parts.
Some assembly required.
Yeah, it gets there 3 days ahead of time, and they start assembling it. So it's definitely 3D printing,
Comes
but
with
it's
a
very
crew
custom.
to assemble
Yeah,
it.
totally. But yeah, that's how it gets done.
Wow,
pretty cool.
I want one.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, with an industrial-sized 3D printer that costs about $50,000, you can have one yourself.
Kickstarter.
There we are. Totally. Speaking of
Kickstarters.
Oops. I think we're talking about the Anime Trouble in Tokyo thing. I think we went back to the other thing. Yep. Yes. We'll get there.
Let me tell you about Kickstarters. The new Otaku Guide to Tokyo is stuck on Kickstarter at $1 pledged out of a $1,000 goal.
Darn.
The Kickstarter was conceived by Drew Poyorina as a series of videos about cool otaku-oriented places in Japan, like Pokemon Mega Center and the Naruto Dragon Ball Z theme parks.
Cool.
He hasn't done anything on Kickstarter before, but he does have 2 videos on YouTube channel for you to check out. The only backer level is at $20, at which your name will go into the credits to be mentioned. There are no rewards, and there's only 14 days to go. So, let's see how that turns out. If you're interested, check it out on Kickstarter.
Yeah, absolutely. It's certainly an interesting project. So the Red Ash anime and game Kickstarters are over, and the dust has settled. So context, this is an official anime studio production, and they're trying to fund entirely on Kickstarter. They're going to do a game and an anime that would sort of interrelate. The anime campaign just barely funded, which is good, at $162,000 compared to the $150,000 he was asking for. So that's good. Now the thing is, that was for an 18-minute film, and for I think every $5,000 over the base, they would add another minute of footage.
Oh wow! So they've got a few minutes here.
Yeah. So that was, but that was above $150,000. So they're only doing 18 minutes so far. But Studio 4C, the studio behind this, has its own crowdfunding site that it's set up. And it's going to use to try to get more stretch goals as they make the anime. They're going to kind of keep it open and see if more folks can add more money to extend the length of that film, which is currently targeting, again, an 18-minute runtime. Now, the game only got about $520,000 of its $800,000 goal. Games are expensive. But a Chinese company named Fuse Entertainment has stated it's going to step in and fund the game instead.
Oh, wow.
So that's different. So then the $500,000 raised by backers will go towards stretch goals for the game. Yeah. What I still haven't figured out, and I should dig back into it, is if you didn't make your goal on Kickstarter, it should end the Kickstarter and all the money goes back to all its backers. So I don't know how they changed that process so they actually got all the money processed. As part of the idea of Kickstarter is you need to make your minimum level. Yeah. So something changed there. Maybe they shortened or changed something. I don't know. But the good news is that money will go to the game, and the game will get funded and made. It's kind of interesting, but it's still definitely kind of a surprise. All right, moving on to releases of the week. So let's start with NIS America with 3 releases this week. Starting with The Daily Lives of High School Boys, which is a screwball comedy about high school boys. Complete series standard edition on Blu-ray. That's 12 episodes plus the 7 specials. That'll retail for about $50, and that's sub only. There's also Natsume's Book of Friends Season 3 standard edition. That's a series about a boy who released a bunch of spirits that he's trying to track down and get back and resolve. 13 episodes plus a 32-page art book, Blu-ray DVD combo pack for that Season 3 standard edition for about $60 retail. And then finally, The Troubled Life of Miss Katora the complete series premium edition on Blu-ray. That's all 12 episodes plus a 64-page art book for about $50 sub only. How's Sentai Filmworks doing?
Oh wow, they've got a number of releases here. Sakura Trick, the complete collection on DVD, and that's 12 episodes. And that's going for about $35 subs only. Space Brothers, which I can't wait to see because I've heard so much about this. Space Brothers Collection 4 DVD. It's going to be 13 episodes, episodes 39 through 51.
Okay.
And that's going to go for $35, which is not too bad a price in subs.
That's what, a little under $3 an episode?
Yeah, that's doable. Space Brothers Collection 4 is also on Blu-ray, and that's going to be for $43.
Not bad at all.
Yeah.
Sunrise also announced, or is also released, Turn A Gundam. I should say Sunrise, The Right Stuff. So Turn A Gundam Part 2 is now available for general release. Those of you who bought it pre-release on Right Stuff would have gotten it about a month or two ago, but now it's available for everyone. So that's the second half of the series, all 26 episodes of the second half on DVD for about $35, which is pretty darn cheap. Right Stuff also released Please Twins Complete Collection. Those of you who saw the old show Please Teacher.
Yeah.
Yes, this is the sequel series, kind of a sort of spin-off separate show set in the same universe. Complete collection, all 12 episodes, about $28. That's like $2 an episode.
Now, is Nozomi Entertainment involved on that?
Yes.
But the Right Stuff was involved with both Nozomi and Sunrise.
So, here's the complexity. So, Nozomi is the wholly owned subsidiary of the Right Stuff International that does all their licensing. The Right Stuff did a deal with Sunrise, so Sunrise is working with them with the Right Stuff to release Gundam. So Sunrise puts together all the releases. The Right Stuff just kind of just distributes it. Nozomi licenses anime within Right Stuff, and then Right Stuff releases that anime.
You got that, guys? That's incredible. It's definitely a soap opera of how things work there.
Absolutely.
So Viz Media has Pokemon the series XY. Is that one?
Nice.
Or is that YX? XY, dyslexia. And that's 24 episodes for $19. That's less than $1 an episode.
Not bad.
For a dub.
Hey.
Yeah.
Not bad. And, good luck finding the sub of that anywhere.
Yeah.
Except on certain streaming sites and such.
And great thanks to AnimeNewsNetwork.com and the DVD Talk Forum.
Yes.
For helping us out with this week's news.
Absolutely. That's the news for this week. Thanks, guys. Cool. All righty. Okay. So some good questions, I'm sure.
In the beginning.
Ooh, that didn't scroll well at all, did it? Yeah, the good question, Liquid, on the extras for the Ghibli release. The book's definitely going to be pretty cool. Yuki's son, I haven't seen anywhere except like on torrents. And that samurai thing I never heard of before in my life. So I don't know what's going on there, but that's pretty cool. Tokyo Otaku Mode's website. Oh, the life-size statues of the 3 EVA pilots. Yeah. Those I think were done with like resin casting or something. I don't think that was 3D printing.
Resin casting, that must be pretty heavy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was some kind of sort of maybe model hollow making. Yeah, something like that. And again, it was multiple pieces, all put together. It's one of the reasons why the reason they picked those 3 characters is the plug suits. Yeah, because the plug suits have multiple pieces to them and multiple, arms and such. It's a lot easier to assemble a character like that compared to somebody who's just a dress. Where do you start?
Where do you put a seam?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, those plug suits are all seams. Couple months to arrive. Yeah. Yeah, there's a controversy about the Red Ash Kickstarter. That's a very good point. Liquid. It is a little worrisome that they went through this Kickstarter and now they're getting traditional funding.
Yeah, it makes you wonder,
Yeah.
We'll see how it turns out because that is sort of well.
Yeah. I'm not thrilled. Granted,
do they get some sort of a premium does that still occur?
Depends on whatever they want to do with it. if they have finished the Kickstarter and the money is done, the money is in their bank account.
But if they didn't reach their goal,
account.
is it really in the bank account?
That's the question.
Yeah, the $64,000 well.
Yeah, $500,000, whatever that is. Yeah, that's
Question.
exactly the point. Yeah, it's tough. I would, if it were me, I would say that the Kickstarter should have failed, and then, if somebody wants to step in, fine. But you didn't get what you asked for.
Yeah, that's sort of a
not quite bait and switch.
Not quite bait and switch, but pretty darn close to bait and switch.
And granted, they did say somewhere that this Chinese company kind of came to them at the last hour and said, "Tell you what, we'll pay for it."
So the end goal that everybody was working towards, on a large scale was,
and it wasn't like they started with this as a back pocket idea that, oh well, we can always get the funding from these people, but maybe the Kickstarter will work. No, it was more
somebody saved their bacon.
Right, totally. But it's interesting. What's also interesting about it is this idea that, if that's really the way it happened, what if Kickstarter is now increasingly being used as a way of advertising a show concept? If a studio can say, we have this neat idea, we're going to put a Kickstarter out there for it, and then if it doesn't fund, there's an increasing likelihood that a financier will come in and pay for it. That would be kind of cool if you have this Kickstarter as one option, but then at least the Kickstarter gets enough attention from financiers. Who knows?
Wow, that might be a way of getting things off the ground. Look, we have almost enough momentum. We just need that little activating energy or money to push us over the edge to get the project rolling.
Exactly. It's
excuse me.
Sorry.
It's the kind of thing where having enough momentum would a crowd would draw people who are industry related to see where the trend
money relative to other projects. You're talking millions of dollars per series. It's going to be really hard for any Kickstarter to get in the kind of money.
Yeah.
It's why Red Ash's structure for the anime was so smart. You start small and then add on, which worked. But for the game, it didn't quite work out that way. So I don't know. It's a tough one. I'll put it this way. I'm glad Red Ash tried it. I'm glad Studio 4C tried it. Red Ash went out there, so we have another option. So you asked, why does Japan have such a fascination with pop idols?
Why does the U.S. enjoy pop idols? Well, why do people? Wow.
And that is, the real answer is, whoever knows. I do know pop idols have been around for a very long time.
It's a whole industry now in Korea. They have like serious people. Their profession and training is just to be a pop idol.
So I'll tell you the story of Morning Musume. So there were these idols, not quite idols, but there are these popular bands back in the day. And one member of a band decided to get out of the band. He was in kind of a boy band kind of a thing. By the way, I'm going to be very vague with my terms and my descriptions here. Boy band might offend you based on what he was actually in. I don't mean boy band in the Backstreet Boys sense necessarily. But he was in a band which consisted mostly of men. And he decided to get out of it and he wanted to get into promotion.
Oh, wow.
And so he had this idea. He, instead of just getting together a bunch of girls, one of the popular things for that is you have a TV show for your band or your group. And so he said, what if I made a reality show about choosing the girls who are going to be in my troupe?
Oh, now that would be exciting because everybody sees those people up there and says, I could do that.
Exactly.
They have a sister, daughter, friend, whoever, who, I think she sings better than her.
Totally.
How do they choose these people? What is the dynamic?
So that's how he did it entirely as this call to the public. People could just show up and sign up, and they did this whole, and by reality show, I don't mean in the kind of the Survivor sense. I mean in the sense of essentially a documented process where they're going to go more like America's Got Talent or Britain's Got Talent.
Okay. So not like the lack of reality shows.
Exactly. Yeah. It wasn't scripted in that sense.
but a realistic, here's the procedure and here's the ups and downs of really being in this industry and the heartbreaks
and
the
so
triumphs.
And so the interesting thing was, and this is kind of how the difference between Japanese and American television, this wasn't a we're going to do this every year thing. we're going to do this and build this group called Morning Musume. So they'll then have a weekly television series, and that will be the new show. So they created Morning Musume, which is a group of, I forget how many girls, but it's a large troupe. And the idea is they can sort of shuffle around as needs come, and as if a girl gets sick, things like that, they can change around. So he built Morning Musume, and it was absurdly popular, amazingly popular. And their show to this day is very, very popular, and they change ranks as the girls get older. And this became a model. So people started doing this huge thing.
Oh my goodness.
What?
On the Wikipedia page for Morning Musume, they have a chart with all the different people
yes,
and when they've been in it and where
so that's
the
a big
member
thing.
changes. Usually with a band, you'll have a lineup. Okay, the bass player died, we replaced him. Maybe a drummer, and then we had a guy who left and came back. This is like a Metro chart.
Yes.
Subway system chart. There's so many. Wow.
Let's see if I can pull that up. Yeah, and it's, I mean, this is big business. It's this question of, okay,
first generation, second generation, third generation, sixth generation, 10th generation. Oh, and this is like multiple simultaneous generation.
Well, and again, this is a big thing. There's this question of, okay, you're in Morning Musume. How long do you last? You're not going to be there forever.
Yeah.
So you want to make sure that you are appropriate for the group, and that eventually you want to spin off, perhaps do your own stuff. Now, this is not without its controversy, especially as this project changed over time. So there are many of these pop idol groups. Up until this time, if you want to be a pop singer, you did the traditional thing. If you've seen Macross Frontier, they kind of document that.
Yeah.
Where the character, you sing on the streets, or you sing in karaoke bars, or
you gotta pay your dues if you want to sing the blues.
Exactly. You do commercials and kind of work your way up, find an agent. And this was kind of a shortcut to that, but in groups. Of course, Japanese society kind of likes its groups, so that helps. But then you started seeing more of these groups, more and more of these groups. I remember seeing a clip of a show for one of the Morning Musume spinoffs for girls as young as 11 years old.
Whoa.
Who are going into some of these projects, and they've got to do all the same stuff that all the other girls do. They have all the pressure, all that stuff. And it's kind of trending younger and younger because you want to get the girls started early and get all that stuff working.
These are my future children, which are already training for this.
Exactly. Yes. So it does tend to put a lot of pressure on young girls. And there are some weird cultural expectations around pop idols. The whole idea that you're supposed to be pure and virginal, and not have a boyfriend.
Wow, that's almost like taking going to a nunnery.
Yeah.
No, do I have to?
Totally. And that's why AKB48, if you've heard of that, is a big deal now, because it was funded as kind of the anti-Morning Musume pop idol group.
AKB48.
Yes.
Well, what is that?
So it stands for Akihabara 48. The idea was it was 48 more or less normal, very pretty girls who can sing, who were formed as kind of a public group. And the idea was that they were actually approachable. There were enough of them. By being 48 of them, there were enough of them that if you went to an event, there was a good number of them there. And they could kind of spread throughout Japan. They could do events in lots of different parts of the world. When there are only, well, you see that first generation is what, 5 girls?
Yeah.
So as if you only have that many girls, you just can't see them.
You don't get sick. You never have a down day.
Right.
You're gonna.
And you're in Osaka for 3 days. And you move on,
and then to the next, the next town.
So if you're a fan, there are very limited chances to see those girls.
You never get a chance to meet them,
right? Which is
48
sucks.
girls. My chances are better.
Totally. And also you get a more expansive variety of girls. Of course, AKB48 got its own controversies and stuff, but it's kind of it's at least kind of a step in the right direction. And the idea is to make it a little more open than Morning Musume, so that what the girls have to go through and the girls' kind of lives are more open to public scrutiny, so that that they're not being beaten to death every day by their schedules.
Wow.
So to your point, It's because it's popular.
I'm constantly amazed by your knowledge of all these things.
Well, one of the things that helped actually was when I was in Tokyo, in Akihabara, I was at the AKB48 store.
There's a store.
Oh, there's a store / cafe / thing in Akihabara, storefront. It's right next to the Gundam Cafe, which is why I was there.
Gundam Cafe.
So, and I didn't go in because it was constantly mobbed because it opened like 3 days before I got there.
Oh, wow.
So there was just people lining up all the time. I'd heard of AKB48, but I was like, what the heck is this thing? So I dug into it because I was there and I wanted to find out why there were 100 guys all lined up starting at 3 a.m. or 3 p.m. in the afternoon for a 7 p.m. opening, whatever it was. But yeah, it's a huge deal, and there's a whole another world about it.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of promotion that goes along.
Oh yes, absolutely. Yeah, and one of the advantages of AKB48 is because they're a little more open. It's a little easier to book them, if you will. Partly because again, you're not booking the entire group. You can book some of them.
I'd like a third of the 48.
Yes, absolutely. And the other fun thing about that too is that you're going to be a fan of AKB48, but you're also going to be a fan of one or two of the girls specifically.
Yeah.
So
so and so didn't make it to this one.
Right. Yeah.
I'll catch her on the next show.
Right. Now the other side of that, speaking of the controversy, is that because of the recent tragedies around folks attacking pop idols in Japan, it's easier to attack AKB48 because there's always an event somewhere.
And there's a lot of them. I can't imagine if they had to have security. 48 people with
there's
security would
there's
be
a lot of security now.
Crazy tight security.
Yeah, and to the point, they're getting to the point where they're gonna have to put glass between them.
Oh my goodness,
It's
that
really bad.
diminishes the approachability.
There's a hilarious thing because one of the things they'll do in these is they'll have handshaking things afterwards. You can go up and shake their hands and say, it's so nice. And so somebody did fan art of a plexiglass thing with a little hole for the hand. So she has her hand out to shake her hand, which is just let's not get to that point, please. That's kind of sad.
Yeah, it just takes one or two wackos out there to cause problems for everybody.
It's so sad. Well, we had a news a week or two ago about a guy who was arrested because he had told one of the members of one of these pop idol groups that I'm going to attack you at your concert. And fortunately, the police stepped in, arrested him before the concert. Nothing happened.
That sounds like a psycho thriller movie.
It does.
It doesn't sound like real life. It shouldn't be that way. Why would?
It's so strange. And granted, and to that point, the reason for that was that she hadn't been responding to his tweets, which is, it's crazy, but still okay, fine. Yeah, kind of like in Perfect Blue. Creepers like in Perfect Blue.
I've got to check out Perfect Blue. I haven't seen that yet.
Yeah, it's a fascinating movie. Satoshi Kon's first film. Yeah, actually, the Gundam Cafe is slightly underwhelming. I loved it, but it is a cafe first. Well, I'll put it this way. It's small. It's decked out to look kind of like a capital ship in the Gundam universe. There's a giant screen playing clips from Gundam, which is awesome. There's gunplay all around, and you can buy. This is so geeky. Okay. So really quick before we go on, I do have a photo and a screenshot because when I was in Japan, I'll have to pull up the presentation. So they have a menu, and the menu lets you get sort of Gundam themed food. And where was let's see here, traveling to Japan.
We've run out of salt. We need to stop at the lake.
Yeah.
Oh, the lake is not there.
Yeah.
What are we going to eat?
No. And so you can get these various foods. So, for example, if you're there for actually, this would be kind of fun. I'll pull up some of these slides so folks can see them. So this is a shot once it result of a poster in Akihabara. So there are some things. To give you guys an idea, these red things on the left, those are balconies. That's like a 3-story tall poster.
That is a huge poster. There's a tree that's it's taller than a tree.
Yeah, that's what Akihabara is like. And there it is at night with these huge posters. That's Robotics Notes up there. That's the Gundam Cafe, complete with a little Gundam antenna up there. So they have these things. So there's the menu, Gundam Cafe, front and back. And so you can do things like So if you've seen Gundam Seed, you know that there are a lot of scenes in their cafeteria where they're carrying around, cafeteria trays with food. They went in to those shots. They looked at what was in their trays in those shots and then replicated that food. So someone will come out with a white plastic tray, just like out of Gundam Seed, with there's chicken, there's the mashed potato, there's mashed potato, exactly like was in there.
I'd like to eat scene 32.
Right, totally. And then it took me a while to realize this. So these are so this is one of the foods you can get. Those are Gundam wings.
Gundam wings. Oh, you go to Gundam Cafe, you get wings. You get Gundam wings.
So there's that kind of ridiculousness. And the prices actually aren't bad. That's about $9 for a meal.
That's pretty good price. And
yeah, exactly for Tokyo, not too bad. And that's the AKB48 cafe and shop actually. So those are folks lining up.
Wow.
For the opening.
Everybody's so orderly
yes.
there. Oh my goodness! When people line up over here, sometimes it kind of mobs and globs.
Yeah.
Everybody's like in rows.
Absolutely. You're up here, and there was an employee out there with a megaphone, telling folks what to do. But also, it's just like everyone go over here. Everyone just kind of shuffled over there. It was very orderly and structured. Now the other complexity here, and again, getting back to the controversy, is things like. I think it was AKB48. It may have been Morning Musume. One of the big groups who they'll do things like you can get this bonus thing if you buy stuff flying around in here. If you buy our CDs, the CDs will include a basically a raffle ticket for this thing, and you need a certain number of raffle tickets for a decent chance. So there are folks who would buy 20 CDs.
The golden ticket.
Yes.
I've eaten so many chocolate bars.
Totally. It was absolutely crazy. And unfortunately, because of the way they structured it, like you had to buy a lot of CDs for any chance. So there was a lot of, okay, maybe this is getting a little exploitative to the fans as opposed to, being a little better than that. But yeah, it can get a little weird.
Serious fan to buy that many because I can't imagine they're cheap.
No, exactly. Don't you hate when an anime gets a dub but fails to complete dubbing the rest? Hellgirl and Familiar of Zero only got their first season dubbed, but the rest of the series didn't mean the rest is subbed. Yeah, that frustrates me too. If I'm listening to the dub, I want to listen to the dub. Listen to that and,
once I start on it, I want to finish it.
And to that point, I'm okay if they have to change voice actors. It's frustrating, but it happens.
Ranma's voice changed so much.
Yeah. Ranma was the first anime series where I switched to the Japanese dub because whoever they did the
That's not my Ranma.
Exactly. And I started listening to English and just I think it was male Ranma was very clearly a woman playing a man. And like that's how they did it in the Japanese version. I totally get it, but just the way it was that trying to do this with your voice, it just grated in my ears. And lots of folks love the voice, and it's one of those things where just my ears couldn't handle it. But yeah, Sesame Gundam Sea Chicken, yeah, there's some terrible stuff out there. I actually have some photos I think here of there's Odaiba, the man-made island in the Sea of Tokyo. Where they have all sorts of cool stuff, these giant indoor shopping malls.
The walkways.
In the walkways. And they have one of those too.
Whoa. A giant Gundam. Well, maybe a real size Gundam.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. A one-to-one scale.
I'd like to buy the model kit for that.
Yeah, totally.
Do they 3D print it?
That'll cost you a couple $1 million. Wow.
Yeah. The Gundam Project. Okay, Kickstarter. Everybody come and join us.
I think we mentioned it at one
US
point.
Gundam.
Yes, they announced recently that the 30th anniversary of Gundam is coming on. We want it to walk. Folks, send in your plans. Figure out some way to make it walk, which would be pretty cool.
Big marionette.
Yeah. Yeah. You want. I mean, well, and they said we want its legs to move, not necessarily for it to walk around mobilely. So the idea is it should be able to like shift onto one leg, step forward, that kind of stuff. So it's not quite making it walk, but it's still a pretty ridiculous concept. I mean, the head moves, it steams, so who knows? see
Launch.
here. Yes. How do you deal with people who say they hate Sailor Moon or any other particular anime yet they've never watched it and they tend to judge things too early or by looks?
I can understand how you might feel that way, having the exposure that you've had. However, I have found on closer examination, there are subtleties that are appealing in, and then whatever characteristic you find enjoyable on it. And then you can turn it around in the phrase of a question to draw out more information about either what they find enjoyable in series. And then you can say, well, you know, you may not have realized, but this characteristic is found in this series. Or you might ask them why, what they don't like in a series and say, well, you probably wouldn't like this series based on your interests of thus and such. And so there's a lot of different ways you can steer it. But it does kind of feel sometimes that people have given it a very superficial judgment when they haven't watched it. And I try and watch stuff first before I really come down on it, because I may not be the target audience all the time, but a really well-told story, even if I'm not the target audience, I can appreciate the narrative or the voice acting or how believable certain things are, or that was so far out. I don't know what those people were thinking. How did they even get this from the studio to the people, and how did it appeal to somebody? Obviously liked it enough to get it produced. And so there's a lot of different aspects that you can look into, even the drawing itself. And you know, the story was awful, but this was so picturesque. I loved it.
And obviously there are kind of two sides to that, right? So there's the person who just is so closed-minded they just don't like the thing. You know,
you're never going to convince them.
Yeah, you're never going to convince them. And I mean, I use closed-minded in the broadest possible sense. Just somebody who is that's just not going to enter their noggin. You know, it's not necessarily that they're an evil person, but just, you know, I don't like Swiss cheese. I'm not saying that, you know, specifically, but you know, if you don't like Swiss cheese, no one's going to convince you to like Swiss cheese. But if you think the person's actually going to like it, I think exactly what you were saying. You know, you address it from various angles, and you say, well, you know, you got to, you may not like it from this perspective, but I think I like it from this perspective.
When I was a kid in elementary school, I didn't like tater tots. I'm not sure why I didn't like tater tots, so I'd always give them to my classmates. And then one day a kid said, why don't you try a tater tot? And so I tried a tater tot, and I loved them. And I never gave away any of my tater tots after that. So, you know, sometimes it's just a matter of getting the experience.
Exactly. And it's one of the reasons why, and one thing to do is, you know, things like anime clubs are so useful, because you get exposure to things you never would have picked yourself.
Yeah. A friend of mine told me about Mushishi. I'm like, huh? What? Okay, I'll check it out. You know, and some of the best anime that I've gotten were, okay, what the heck? I'll give it a shot.
Exactly.
And I'm constantly amazed that you know, it may not be even a good description on the cover as to what it really goes into. I try and avoid some reviews just because I don't want spoilers, or I don't want to be too skewed, but some people are really good at giving a review that doesn't give away the excitement of exploring it yourself.
Totally. Yeah, one of the shows I'm really loving this season, I got into purely because of I checked out I saw this one screenshot. It wasn't even a screenshot; it was just a promo image of the show. I was like, I'm sorry, wrong one.
However, that does have an appeal.
It does have an appeal.
It reminds me of the classroom in Haruhi.
I looked for. Oh, that's what's going on.
The club room. All the higher ceilings.
They're announcing multiple shows here. They gave me the wrong one. There it is. That's what I want. So I saw this one image that I just really thought was rather lovely. Girls in what appears to be some kind of you know, like a flight suit and overalls, and it's kind of interested. And it turns out this is Classroom Crisis, which is a series about, let's see if we can get the nice shot, which is it's set in this sort of neat science fiction future that's kind of
where
corporate
math need not
structured.
apply.
Yeah.
3 times 7 is infinity.
And it's about these these kids in this sort of honors class that make they actually make this racing sort of space fighter thing as their project, and it deals with their stresses and their problems and trying to get funding for what they do.
That sounds fun.
It's a really fun show. It's funny, but it's also set in this science fiction future where they kind of try to think through things. It's a fun, weird, cool little sci-fi show.
What's the name of that again?
Classroom Crisis.
Classroom Crisis.
And I never would have seen it if I didn't say, I'll give it a try. There's this wonderful little thing. I don't know if you can see it in there. Every episode begins with this image and this text. The most certain way to succeed is to try one more time. Our greatest weakness lies in giving up. And that's at the beginning of every single episode, which I really, really liked.
I like that. Yeah. That is good.
And for what is worth, Letter Robo, I completely sympathize about Evangelion. I had a very similar reaction to Evangelion, where it was so hyped by people whose defense of it was so thin that I didn't quite believe them. But when I just sat down and watched it, I really enjoyed it.
For me, I had a different experience. I was preoccupied with school throughout the time that it had its heyday. And the only reason I knew about it was my brother had a poster. And he never talked about it. We just put it up one day. And I saw it for years. And then I thought, I'll try this anime stuff. Hey, I remember that title from my brother's poster. I'll check it out. And I enjoyed it, and so sometimes avoiding the hype is a good thing.
Absolutely. Well, and as Liquid was saying about Godzilla 2014, don't follow the hype. If you like it, then that's great. A show that I actually watched a bit more of, and I'm trying to find a work safe screen image of this, is Shimoneta. You were talking about earlier. Is that a reasonable? No, it's not. Boring world where the concept of dirty jokes don't exist, which is dealing with all sorts of wonderful aspects of Japanese current pop culture. No one's really doing reasonably work safe versions of this, but heck, it's after 11 p.m. Who cares? This is So it's a series about the Tokyo Youth Ordinance Bill amendment and the worries about Japanese crackdown on content that is unsuitable for youth, and the idea of increasing censorship of these things. So it's interesting. So it's just a wacky, fun show about dirty minds and dirty ideas and dirty thoughts and censorship.
So that's Shimoneta.
SHIMONETA. Yep.
Wow. And it's funny that we were talking about this earlier because the cultural situation has developed a storyline.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
Dealing with issues of the day and the whole concept of censorship and sort of playing on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
It seems almost like the extension of the idea of a political cartoon. You take the subject of the day and point out some of the amusing points of it.
Exactly. And I mean, that's kind of where manga started, as political satire cartoons. Wakakaze sure looks interesting. Huh. Have to give that a try. Looks goofy.
Wakakaze.
Interesting.
Waka Waka.
Yes.
Wakakaze.
Have you seen the promo for the new Muppet Show?
No, I haven't.
Oh boy, we can't show it here because it would get pulled immediately. But they do. They're going to do a new Muppet Show. So if you guys have seen the clips about this, CBS announced this based on a promo video the Muppets shot about how they're going to do a new reality show. They showed all this footage, and they announced the ads, and then at Comic-Con, they showed this 10-minute footage of all the Muppets acting around, talking about this new show they're going to do, which was not intended for any public broadcast. It was just going to be within ABC. And there was so much reaction to it. So many people begged for it that a few days later, the video appeared on ABC's YouTube channel, along with the text ahead of it saying, "This video is not meant for public consumption, but we cut through the red tape. Please stop emailing us."
Wow, the power of the people.
Exactly.
We want our Muppets.
But the interesting thing is, if you've seen this clip, that's not the show. They explained at the Comic-Con panel what the show actually is. Miss Piggy has a late night talk show. Oh yeah. Kermit's her executive producer. Oh gosh, I'm forgetting names now. Gonzo and Rizzo are the writing staff. What are all the other ones? The network censor is Sam the American Eagle.
Oh yeah.
Of course, catering is a Swedish chef. So it's just going to be this half-hour episode of all these
Beaker,
Muppets.
the professor. Did they...
I forget how they're going to do that. I do. There's a bar across the street. It's owned by Rolf.
Rolf.
Yes.
Fuzzy is.
Fozzie is, I think, one of. No. Yeah. I was wondering how they're going to do this, and I realized, of course, Fozzie is Miss Piggy's sidekick on the late night talk show.
That makes sense.
Of course, and he's terrible. So yeah, it's going to be amazing. It looks wonderful.
They gotta have those two old guys in the
Yes,
back.
exactly. I wonder if it's going to work for the network or something. That would be great.
Oh, that would be network execs.
Oh gosh, amazing.
The idea of a first season doing a dub, but
yes,
not the second season or a third season doing the dub,
mm-hmm.
that opens up the possibility for fan dubs.
That is true. That is very true.
Fan dubs. Do
fun.
many people do fan dubs?
Some do. Yeah, they're out there.
It seems like fan subs are more prevalent. I haven't seen.
There's certainly fewer because fan subs can be done by only one or two people. Generally, for a fan sub, you'll have at the most a translator, a subtitler, a checker, and then an encoder. So someone to translate it, someone to actually put the subtitles on the episode, one to review all of it, and then one to actually do all of the video processing and uploading and all that kind of good stuff. But even all that can be done by just one person with the right skills. With the fan dub, you need a lot more people than that to coordinate all that. So it happens, but it's pretty rare.
Hey, that might be fun to try. We should do that. Yeah. Get a good idea for a series that has.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, Shimoneta is Funimation. Classroom Crisis is Crunchyroll, so you can do that. Scrolling back up there. So the idea of Shimoneta is a little different than what you're hearing there. It's not about groping women on trains. It's different than that. Without going into too much more detail. Yeah, an abridged series is kind of like a fan sub when they re-edit things together and do their own kind of version of events. That's cool. The Miyakawa Family's Hunger. What's that a basis of? Or is that the show? Excuse me. I haven't heard of that show as an anime series. And yeah, and certainly there's like Yu-Gi-Oh! Abridged is technically a fan dub, although it's all, individuals doing wacky voices. But that is kind of the idea. Of course, the difference there is that you're completely changing it for the stuff that you write.
Yeah.
So for Yu-Gi-Oh! Abridged, you're making new jokes with the characters and changing all that.
That's
stuff.
actually kind of intriguing.
It's fun
to see what people can come up with.
It's a lot of fun. Yeah. Lucky Star. Interesting.
I kind of think of the whole Mystery Science Theater 3000. Yeah. What could be done with
absolutely
writing a new plot in and.
Oh yeah. Well, and you see that a lot in the AMV Hells.
Iron Editor. Taking old stories into new locations.
Very new locations. New parts of the body in some cases.
That actually sounds kind of interesting. That the family hunger, because
Mhm.
most of the time we see things and people are doing pretty well. They have trouble, but you don't see real troubles.
Mhm.
And I mean, you see some troubles, but not.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just the title, "Family Hunger."
Yeah, that's an unusual topic.
Yeah.
And Japan has a relatively flat, what would you call that?
Like,
Income disparity kind of thing.
it's not a not a wide income gap.
Yes, there we go.
between
Yeah, very large middle class, I guess, for simplicity's sake. So yeah, it's not that common. But then of course you also have the complexity of World War II, which brought in a lot of poverty
yeah.
back then. So it's a big change. Yes. Well, and then speaking of dubs, the announcement that the new Digimon movies that features the original characters in the first season is going to have all the original cast for the monsters, but a completely new cast for the kids, which seems backwards in my view. I mean, if you're going to change anyone, it seems the monster to be less.
I can still play a kid. I know I can sound young.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah, that's a fair point. The interesting. So the poverty is not handled too seriously in Miyakawa Family's Hunger, and that makes sense.
Sometimes joking about things is.
I remember playing a visual novel called Family Affair, I think, and there was almost no adult content in it, and it was about this young man who kind of ends up with a family being built around him of these various characters who kind of get attracted into his life, and they end up living together. So he has kind of a surrogate dad, surrogate mother, surrogate sister, so forth. And it's kind of sweet, but it is, they end up, they're living in this abandoned lot for a while, and then they find a house no one's living in, and all these various things of how they kind of were able to make things work. It's definitely a little different. Apparently it gets a lot more adult in the final chapters, which is why I haven't gotten that far. I'm like, I know that's family. That's just kind of creepy. Yeah. But in fact, the first episode begins, which shocked me, with a girl, a Chinese girl, who manages to escape because she was brought over on a boat, for a very specific, a very specific job in Japan.
Goodness. Wow.
And she manages to get away, and she collapses in an alleyway behind where this guy works.
Wow.
And like the first thing that happens when she takes him home is that she tries to thank him with herself.
Wow.
Which he's, no thanks.
Honorable.
And not what I was expecting there. And then of course it goes on from there. But it's like, wow, that's
a serious story. That's a serious story. Yeah.
Exactly.
Wow.
G Reconquista and G, I have not gotten a chance to. I've only watched the first couple episodes of that. I know Tomino has said that the plot took a lot longer to build up than they kind of wanted to or expected. So I was kind of waiting for it to finish up. So at some point I want to move forward on that. I've watched enough Tomino series to know that his shows are an acquired taste, and that folks tend to get really work. This happened with Turn A Gundam. It came out. It was very different. Even folks who loved his works were really down on it when it first came out. But folks who came in with a reasonably open-minded, and again, I don't mean that in a negative sense, but just in a
sort of like a fresh set without having seen.
Exactly. When they come in fresh, or when you can be a fan of it, but just said, okay, this is going to be whatever it is. I'm not going to bring in a lot of preconceived notions. They seem to like it a lot. The first couple episodes I watched of Reconquista, I've just like you, Letter, I found it fast paced but not incomprehensible. It was fine.
Liquid Snake, that's the way I do it. I want to see everything so I can binge.
Yeah.
I don't want to wait for the next week. Every week for how long?
Yeah, I rarely binge, but I want to be able to say, okay, I'm going to spend a couple hours getting through more content here. So, and at that point, some folks, they will only watch it if they can watch the entire thing in one sitting.
Oh wow,
that
some of
that
those
I
would
can't
be
do.
hard.
That. Yeah, I'm like no.
Although the guy who had the Kickstarter,
yes,
I kind of want to get him on there. There was for those of you who aren't familiar, there was a guy in Australia who wanted $78 US so that he could buy a bunch of energy drinks to watch 10 anime series,
something like that. Yeah, back to back to back
back to back to back, and he'd never seen anime before.
Mm-hmm.
And it just sounds so crazy that this guy's gonna plunge himself in.
Not gonna go well.
I just wonder what anime he would have chosen. It almost seems worth it just to record the guy watching this and find out how his experiment goes.
That's interesting, Letter Robo. You said there's a new ending going to be made. Was it kind of like what happened with Ideon, where they kind of ran out of time at the end and they decided to change the ending in the movies? Or is it going to be like a reanimation like Gundam Seed Destiny, where they were like, you know what, that just fell apart. We're going to reanimate that and rework that kind of from scratch for the last few episodes. They did they call it Gundam Seed Destiny Final Plus was what they called it, where they was like, we're just going to redo the final 3 episodes. It'll end basically the same, but we're gonna fix the animation and the timing and so forth and so on, where kind of stretched out a bit too much.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Aitenji Moyo, which is 5-minute episodes. That's nothing.
I'll usually break a series into like before lunch,
yeah,
after laundry, a couple of sometimes a couple of days.
Yeah.
But it's a big chunk of time all at once.
Yeah, gotcha. Interesting, a bit of both. Okay, fair enough.
Now here's something I'm kind of curious about. In the release of the Miyazaki movies, someone was telling me that there was a Disney dub that was different than an earlier dub.
Yes.
Are they they're gonna do the Disney dub?
Yes. They will undoubtedly be Disney dubs.
They won't. You don't think they'll have the previous dub?
They will not have licensed them. I mean, you gotta license that.
Issue.
Yeah. So there was a dub. So there have been 2 Miyazaki movies that were dubbed before they were released by Disney. One was My Neighbor Totoro, which was dubbed by Fox, by Carl Maychek, the man responsible for Robotech.
That's where I know that name. Oh, wow.
And he produces this fantastic dub. In fact, somebody asked Disney, "Are you going to use that dub?" And the folks who were doing it for the Disney dub, and they said, "We love that dub, but Disney did not buy the license for that dub. I mean, that's an extra cost, so we're going to dub it again."
Kickstarter for Disney.
Yeah,
no.
Yeah, they don't need that. But yeah, so that was one where they said, we licensed it to make a new dub. We're going to do our own dub. And then there was a version of Nausicaa of the Valley of Wind called Warriors of the Wind, which was some might call savage re-edit of Nausicaa of the Valley of Wind. That was licensed back in the late 80s, I think, and brought out here. And it was such a serious change, such a rework, that Miyazaki stated, henceforth, I will never license any of my shows in America ever again.
Wow, that's pretty bold. Wow.
I've seen Warriors. I've seen it. It is a significant reworking of the story. It crops. It's maybe 2 hours and 15 minutes down to like 90 minutes.
Whoa.
Reworks a lot of the storylines. Granted, there are a few things in the original that were expanded in the comic that were kind of abbreviated in Warriors of the Wind that they then basically rewrote to stick within the plot of the movie.
So it wasn't.
So it was an understandable change to say, well, why is this in here? But purists certainly complained, and they changed half of the characters' names, things like that. It just kind of seemed ridiculous. But yeah, that's the other one that no one will ever license or release that version ever again, because it was such a blight. That was why Disney actually was the only one who could license it, because they were the ones who could come in with the finances to say, we don't need to make any changes. We're making money off other things. It's fine.
Wow, the good and the bad of it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're even getting the Lupin film, The Castle of Cagliostro, which is pretty cool. Totoro's your first anime. Awesome. It was my first Miyazaki movie. Yeah, I don't wish I hadn't seen it. It was a different take on it. It was it was made at a time when folks
wow
felt they had to really
I can't
change
unsee what
Yeah.
I've seen.
You know, it was such a different thing compared to what American audience were used to, that the distributor felt they had to make it make more sense.
Yeah, there used to be a song, look what they did to my song, Ma, look what they did to my song. A story about a song telling the story about a guy who gets into the music business, and all the producers and everybody and the record company all change his song, and now he's singing a different song. And
well, and I mean, to be fair, creator's intent only goes so far. Orson Scott Card famously wanted to put Ender on the cover of Ender's Game, which is a science fiction novel about a young boy who goes into this science fiction thing. And the folks at Tor said, we're going to put a spaceship on the front because it's science fiction. And Orson Scott Card said, but it's about a boy. It should have a boy on the cover.
Marketing. We want to market.
And
story.
And the guys at Tor said, with respect, you're an author, not a cover artist. As I said, so he put a spaceship on the front, and it sold 58 bazillion copies over the course of forever. And he said, the author's intent doesn't mean that they're right. We've got to hear what they say. We've got to also understand that there's a limit to sometimes they make the wrong choice on things.
I wonder who did the Douglas Adams cover with the green guy. Because that wasn't in anything, but it was very iconic.
It was, absolutely. But there's a great TED Talk by a cover artist. I'm going to see here. I'll look it up right now. And it actually delves into Chip Kidd did a TED Talk. Let's just pull up the page for it here.
That sounds like an internet name for somebody who's into electronics.
Totally.
I'm the Chip Kid.
Chip Kid. And she does this great, and that is how he dresses. And she does this great thing about how he designs covers for books. And he did the cover for 1Q84, which if you've ever seen that, which is about people with different personalities. It's actually a Japanese novel. And it's got a velour cover, so you can kind of see things through the cover and what's going on behind it.
Wow.
He also designed the hardback covers for Buddha, the Osamu Tezuka manga. Let me see if I can find the images for that, which are these just completely iconic images from the various moments in there. Then he also did this very interesting thing where he sliced up images of the Buddha so that if you put all the books side by side,
oh, nice,
you get the three faces of the Buddha.
That is neat. So the collection actually has something comes as an image once you have the collection.
But even further than that, he also made sure that you see something on every single one of those spines. If you only have one spine, you still see something.
It's artistic, but
exactly.
The collection, the sum is greater than the parts.
Totally. So you'll see that in the TED Talk. But it's this whole thing about how do we get across this, and again, you're not necessarily getting across the concept of the book, but you're helping the reader parse through a bunch of other things to see that's the book I want to buy today.
Yeah, if I saw the cover of just a kid, it doesn't pull me in like a spaceship does.
Right.
It doesn't necessarily say to me sci-fi. Maybe if he's wearing a spacesuit, there's a spaceship in the background or something. But people do judge a book by its cover.
They do.
And
exactly.
It's a lot of it is just marketing to get it out there. And I don't have a problem sometimes with a cover pulling me in and then being different. As long as the story's good.
Yeah, exactly.
But if it's something that's a really appealing cover and then it's like a manual on accounting practices, I'd really kind of it's got to have some bearing.
We've all bought those books. It's like, what, really? What? No.
Now tax code, actuarial tables.
That's a good point, Liquid Snake. That it also shows that you watch at the wrong time. You come in and you're like, I know this is a good show, but I just can't get it right now. I just can't get into this show.
Timing is everything.
It really is. And just, we are creatures of many interests and many moods. And sometimes You know, you're the wrong person for that at that time. I have not seen Hellgirl, but I'd like to. Yeah, complicated history, absolutely. Evangelion's one for me, certainly. Oh yeah, I agree with you too, Letter. I like Robotech's music more than Macross. I think it really works. Zeta Gundam, yeah. Actually, the big one for me was G Gundam. I tried watching that a few times, and it is so over the top, ridiculous giant robot fantasy. And I was just so used to Mobile Suit Gundam, you know, the way we're used to it, that I could not get into it. But I had to just kind of let it go.
Liquid Snake, I think, asked a question earlier about Google Plus.
Oh yeah, no, Google Plus isn't going away. They're not dropping Google Plus. They're changing the integration of Google Plus with other services. If you read posts by the folks who are actually on the Google Plus team, they say, yeah, no, there are larger things going on at Google to one of the ideas of Google Plus initially was to have a integrate with other services. And now they're moving away with that because they're finding other ways of solving those things.
So that made the news recently for what reason?
They're dropping Google Plus integration with YouTube.
With YouTube.
So YouTube will still have some of the same features that it got when Google Plus came in. But Google basically originally thought Google Plus brings a lot of value to YouTube in the sense that if you remember comments before YouTube, it sucked. They were only like 200 characters. You couldn't do anything with them. Now you can do formatting. You can include links, all these great stuff. You can have threaded conversations. So it brought in a lot, but because it was a change, everyone on YouTube just freaked out and just didn't like it. So I think they're kind of pulling out to repair that damage. But here's the thing. Google absolutely needs a social network. It cannot survive without a social network. It needs some place where people can gather and post content and share content. You do not want to rely on Facebook or Twitter because Google is more or less competing with them. So Google Plus is going to remain for a long time, as far as I can tell. And Google Plus has a lot of engagement, which the tech press doesn't like to talk about. The tech press built up this idea that Google Plus is a ghost town, and that's become the dominant thing because what the tech press did is they would create a Google Plus account and then go on there and wait for information to come in and wait for posts. And you have to follow people for posts to come in. So they'd have this empty timeline. They go and say, well, Google Plus is dead. If you go in there and you look for people and you look for conversations, there's lots of stuff going on Google Plus. But that became just kind of how folks talk about Google Plus. But if you look at the actual numbers for Google Plus, it's one of the most popular social networks on the internet. It's fine. I don't think it's a big deal. Oh, I see, Letter Robos. You started with more the goofy stuff, or the more light stuff, and then got in. That's interesting. That would be a tough thing. École de Ciel is fantastic, isn't it? That's so lovely. So École de Ciel, how incestuous it all is. It's a Gundam manga series by the character designer of Macross.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So he went in and he said, no, I'm going to do a Gundam manga. And there's like 12 volumes.
That sounds exciting.
It's really cool. And it's a female protagonist, too. Which is pretty cool. Yeah, I released a video on where to start with Gundam this week.
Yeah.
Which Gundam to watch first. So if you're curious, it's a place to start. I recommend a few starting points.
I started at the beginning.
There we go, which is what I recommend.
Mobile Suit Gundam.
Yep, absolutely.
Where do we go from here?
Zeta Gundam.
Zeta Gundam. Okay. My guide to the Gundams. And there's so many of them. It's just, I mean.
And the nice thing is it's almost always a good idea to go chronologically. You know, the quality is going to kind of go up and down and so forth, but it's just easier.
Now, chronologically is sort of an amorphous term, as we see with Haruhi, because there's chronologically on the DVD, and then there's chronologically on the release dates. There's as we look at Boogiepop Phantom, there's chronologically, but it doesn't necessarily follow the storyline because it jumps all around chronologically. In the Gundam universe, are there things that happen before the first series that aired? So chronologically, what mode of chronologically are you talking about?
By release date.
By release date, okay.
That's a good question. I definitely go by release date, partly also because that gives you a better idea of the evolution of the fandom. When you see what comes before, you see what folks are reacting to or responding to. So the recent Mobile Suit Gundam, the Origin series, is I was about to say a lie. Gundam Unicorn actually starts earlier than any other Gundam up to this point. So it actually starts in UC 0001 is where it begins. The very beginning of the Universal Century timeline is where it starts.
In the beginning,
yes, and you see because it's great because you start oh yes, it all started somewhere. Well, of course, But so for example, Gundam the Origin is set, I think, 15 years before the beginning of Mobile Suit Gundam. That's the most recent Gundam series. So yeah, it bounces around a little bit, but generally speaking, you start chronologically by release date, and then you kind of understand how things flow.
I agree because that.
Oh, interesting question. Idea, Liquid Snake. Where to start for certain franchises, if you will. That's a good idea.
That's a good jumping off point because sometimes, as a fan, you go to look at one series and then you suddenly realize there's 3 series with these names. Which one do I start with? Where do I? Oh, wait, there's not just 3, but then there's OVAs and then there's spin-off series that are similar. And looking at AnyDB, I'm like, okay, this has a prequel, and then there's others after it that refer to this that not necessarily. And
you can get into crazy stuff like Lotus War, where there are at least 3 different franchises set in the Lotus universe.
Oh wow!
So different. So there's Record of Lotus War, the TV series, Record of Lotus War, the OVA, which are both. Oh, I'm not sure if one's set after the other or if they're different versions of the same universe. And then there's Legend of Crystania, which is an OVA and a movie. And then there's Rune Soldier Louis, which is a TV show, but they're all set on the same world, on the same fantasy world. Wow. So keeping track of what's where and what's referring to which and what timeline you're in is just goes crazy. Patlabor, Patlabor is a little easier if you're just talking about the anime because there are relatively few Patlabor. I think TV, anime, and a few movies. I'm sorry, TV, OVA, and a few movies. But yeah, there's certainly plenty there. Yes, and definitely Tenchi. You say Ghibli. You can do Ranma. Patlabor, Macross, Evangelion now. I get so many people who are confused. What are the rebuild movies? What do they do? What are the original movies? What's going on there? Babylon Crisis, Dirty Pair.
That has a whole bunch of things. Police, AD Police, and several other things.
Yeah. Weren't you downloading the certain file?
I think there's a collection somewhere on the internet
it's pretty much everything.
You just check out AnyDB and it'll say, I follow the links back to the source, and then I always look at the dates. Okay, so this one came out release date earlier. And one thing I like about following the release dates is I can put it in a historical context. Okay, this is what was going on in the world around this time, and specifically Japan. And these were the contemporary anime that were coming out. And so comparatively, based on this, this was really good, or this could they were overtaken by this other anime that was just stellar. And, having that framework to work from is kind of interesting because it gives it a way of placing it so that when you can follow up with the next series, okay, now it's been a few years, they've taken a break, they've recharged the batteries.
Well, and also, I mean, the reality is that animation style changes over time too. So if you go chronologically and you start with Gundam the Origin, it's going to look slick and modern. And you go back to 1979 Gundam,
everything's blocky. they're sharp edges.
I need to see Blood Plus. I need to see the Blood movie, the Blood the Last Vampire, the French movie. Oh, and we also have
would be good to see
Kite
that
live
again.
action, which we should watch at some point. Yeah, FMA and then OVA movie Brotherhood. That's true. Yep. Yeah, things bounce around.
Yeah, I haven't seen Brotherhood. I just started it. I actually have started it a few times with the intention of binging, and then I got sidetracked. But the original I really enjoyed, and everybody seemed to like Brotherhood, so had to wait till that came out.
Yeah.
But Blood Plus, I didn't get a chance to follow the whole series because they had, I think they had it on Cartoon Network on Adult Swim for a while, and I really liked the sets, the settings that was going through.
Cool.
I've never really been a big fan of vampire movies. Just they just don't seem to have the same appeal that other people have. But the series.
I found an amazing one that I need to. One of those things where it was way too late at night when I started the movie, and I was like, I have to stop this, but I so want to watch more. What was it called? I don't have it on here anymore. Dang it! I thought for sure I kept it on here. Oh gosh, but it's about a group of English actors who go to Transylvania to film a vampire movie at this castle, and it becomes increasingly clear that the guy who owns the castle is actually a vampire.
The tables have turned.
And what's great
Jokes on them.
Absolutely. And it's very weird because one of the characters is Eddie Izzard, the British comedian, who plays kind of the comedic foil in the sense of saying, like, you guys saw that, right? Like he had fangs, didn't he? You know, and everyone's like, well, no, we must have done Trick of the Light. So there's all this kind of, and it's kind of, on the one hand, like, it is horror, like it is legitimately something fundamentally is wrong here, and everyone's gonna die. But they also kind of also play it for laughs in some way. It's really interesting, and it made in like 1995 or something.
Wow.
I have not seen Gregory Horror Show, but people keep recommending it. Yeah, very non-traditional. And I've seen. Actually, I was watching Those Who Hunt Elves recently. Weird, and there was a trailer on there for Gregory Horror Show, which very much intrigued me. It's a first-person perspective anime.
That sounds interesting. Just for watching the
totally.
Just for watching that,
yeah. Yeah, it's very odd.
Wow.
Experimental visual style.
It's always fun to see something completely different in the way things are done.
Exactly. And on that note, we should probably head out. It's unfortunately rather late here. But yeah, thanks for the recommendation letter. We'll definitely dive into that. In fact, I'm going to make a note to myself. Gregory Horror Show.
Gregory Horror Show.
I was actually at Otakon last weekend doing anime panels. It's
Otakon?
A little exhausted. Gen Con.
Otakon,
Gen Con. So running all around Indianapolis and telling people about anime. It was amazing how many folks there was another obscure anime panel besides mine, and amazing number of folks who just hadn't heard of anything. You know, where you expect some things, but people are like, there was one it was on like Eureka 7.
Oh, that made air.
Yeah, where I was like, and
Eureka 7 was on Adult Swim.
and a couple others that had been on Adult Swim were like, yeah, we've heard of that one. Folks are just really what? Huh? Strange.
Yeah, for me, Adult Swim is, I think the thing that most people will be familiar with because so many people have Cartoon Network.
Yeah,
where some of these other titles are a little bit harder to find. They're not on your standard spot. So you really find an anime fan when you see something that is never going to make it to Adult Swim's never been mentioned. And it's exciting. So there's always something new.
Yeah. If you guys want obscure, I stumbled across something. There's a thing called The Sensualist. It is an anime movie made in, I think, 92 or 93. It was released once in the United Kingdom on VHS tape. That's been the only legitimate release that I know of. It's about a guy who went around in the Edo period in Japan and basically slept with a lot of women.
He was very sensual.
Yes, and it's based on his. I think it was a novel of his adventures, sort of Cyrano kind of a story. But it's a film, so it's not adult in that sense. So it uses entirely visual imagery and metaphor to get across how they are physically interacting.
Oh, wow.
And doing things. It's very, if you like animation in terms of art style, this is absolutely firing on all cylinders on that. It's very, very interesting. But yeah, no one's seen that. And there's a torrent out there somewhere, but just, that gets pretty darn obscure. And it's really interesting. Cool. All right. Thank you, guys.
Thanks a lot for joining us.
Yeah, exactly. We'll be back next week with more. Keep watching for more Culture Shock and more Gundam and much more.
And obscure anime.
Exactly. Yes.
News.
Yeah.